good reason to believe that ENX have made some proper improvements here, Jesse, especially picking up Mitrix, even if his stats, as Leo pointed out, are not the greatest. How will he gel with this new roster, and how will he gel with a new role and playstyle? We'll find out. Let's load into Lair for our very first matchup here of SAL Stage 2.
We'll get right into the operator bans. It tends to be the Wild West on Lair, probably the least kind of figured out map when it comes to the bans. If there's a meta that's been established, it's been electricity bans on defense and shield bans on offense, and it does look like we're going to continue that trend. I would expect a Blackbeard and a Bandit to follow this up, but a Blitz and a Bandit would be just as common. Last stage in the South American League, Bandit and Kite accounted for 55% of first phase bans. Domestically at the very least. So that can be very common, especially in South America. That trend holds, but the shield trend does not. It's going to be the Deimos taken out from ENX. So that's no longer going to be an option afforded to FaZe clan to run this operator. Kind of fun to see that removed. There's a couple of different FaZe players that like to play Deimos. Handy will play a lot of Deimos. Cyber will play quite a bit of Deimos. So those are the two operators that are going to be probably the most hindered by that op being removed off the board. But should be exciting to see how this goes down. One thing that I know the desk was talking about was kind of the roles on ENX and what that might look like. I had a chance to talk very briefly with Sexy Cake right before this season started, and I asked him about the roles. He told me that the entry duo is going to be both him and Angels. He said Mitrix is coming into a flex role, and then it's going to be Bach and Florio that are holding down the support roles. But what was most interesting to me is that Sexy Cake said he will be IGLing from the second entry position. And I'm really interested to see how that works for him, because not a lot of teams choose to do that. This will be the only team in the Americas that try to IGL from entries. So it can be tough sometimes, but if any player is going to pull it off, I think a guy like Sexy Cake with so much experience would be the one to do it.
God, I feel old as hell to say that Sexy Cake was on that roster of Team Liquid that won Pro League Season 7 in Atlantic City. That was in 2018, and Sexy Cake became a champion, not a world champion. I know that certain players in Brazil have, prior to their first SI win as a region, would call just any victory a world championship. That's not really the way it works. But Sexy Cake is still a Pro League champion. It's something you can't take away from him. And I don't really ever think he's been the problem on a lot of these rosters as he's cycled through and become quite a journeyman here in Brazil. I think when you go onto an organization and a team like Team Liquid, there's a bit of an expectation that you're going to be there for a while. And don't get me wrong, Sexy Cake was on that team for quite some time. Their core that they had stuck together for a long period of time. But I guess maybe he just doesn't gel in the roles. Maybe it's more of an interpersonal issue. Is obviously how you get along with your teammates matters quite a bit, sometimes even more than your abilities inside the server. On the flip side of this, you've got FaZe Clan, a team that has been together forever. And I really appreciate that they haven't been making many changes. You know, if you see them at events, they are always together. They're always seemingly in good spirits. The team just gels and vibes. And I think that's part of the secret sauce as to why they've been so dominant over the last couple of years, Jesse.
Wow, good clear of operations to start things off. Angels does survive, though, and they're wasting a lot of these Selma charges. Two players down bottom lobby are going to be walking into a shotgun now as Mitrix is on the Grimbees. He's getting pinged, but that doesn't seem to matter until the bathroom player pushes up. KDS is the one who gets the frag in the end, and that's going to open the door for these last couple players to start walking up the lobby stairs, get themselves a bit of space, and the pressure starts to enclose on ENX. One player gallery window, one in the bathroom. So this operations push has kind of been a bit of a bait. They've moved off of that position more or less and are now looking to get into the bomb site from the hallway.
And closing in now after you lose Mitrix, you lose your very first, the very first death on your team is the newest entry. That's never always it's never a good thing. There go those Molotovs shot out by Florio onto the doorway, and FaZe Clan is adept at avoiding it, at least for the time being. You got one toxic canister in Bach's back pocket as he's thrown out yet another, and Angels is punished by Handy. Sexy Cake, the first player on ENX to strike.
Oh no.
I'm sure what is happening is great at this present moment. I am not sure. There we go. Okay, we are back in action. It looks like the round is over. It looks like FaZe Clan won. So fantastic stuff for FaZe Clan.
All right, big round win from them. I think by the time that we lost the feed, I think Handy had already secured a significant advantage for FaZe, getting them into that big 4v3. So nice to see FaZe Clan starting off so strong here. I'm looking back at the VOD. It looks like it was then Souls who kind of pushed into the site alongside his teammates. Didn't seem like there was much of a fight back from ENX. So really solid push from FaZe Clan. I think what really stands out is their coordination, right? Sometimes after a long break, even for the best of teams, it can be tough to be on the same page as your teammates. You're coming back in first round of the new stage, but they were so in sync when they went for that clear, specifically onto Mitrix playing the lobby stairs. They were pushing it from down below. They jumped in from the bathroom window. They had that really perfectly coordinated pinch that got them their initial lead. And then Handy just stepping up big for that 3K. A player who has had some ups and downs, I would say, this season for FaZe Clan. Hasn't always been the most consistent player. He's the youngest guy on the team, but still has that world champion mentality, is able to step up in the big moments, and is incredibly talented. So good to see him on the board early.
Didn't really get a good enough look at Mitrix and his contributions to the team through that first round, so we'll have to wait till maybe the midway point here before we can weigh in. It'll take some time for us to assess how he impacts this team. For those that didn't listen to the desk portion or don't have access to the stats from the previous stage, just a couple months ago when stage 1 concluded, ENX was in the bottom of the league. The only squad that was below them was the Argentinian team of 9Z. ENX was the lowest full Brazilian team in this South America League. I know that this might be a distinction to some people that seems irrelevant, but I think it's worth noting. This is not Brazil any longer, it's South America, and while it is dominated by Brazilian teams, teams from Chile and Argentina and Peru and all of that are capable of competing. 9Z has some Brazilians on the roster, but is primarily Argentinian. Every other one of the teams in the SA League, all 9 of them, they all have a full Brazilian roster, and ENX finished at the bottom tied with Los. Nice start off of this round by Sexy Cake. Long range engaging with Handy. Sexy Cake with 3 kills so far. Basically controlling the whole team. My God. KDS just fries Mitrix and Sexy Cake on the stairs. He flicked onto Mitrix and sent him to the Shadow Realm. And FaZe Clan now have themselves in a favorable position. With a minute 30 left, they've tied things up and still have some utility to spare.
Wow, it's been a great show from KDS, but they're not in a massive advantage still. They've pushed everybody down to the basement. The roam game has been cleared up, but still got a lot of soft breaching to do, and the Buck will start to get to work on that. Castle barricades have started to cause a bit of a problem for them as well. You saw one on the filter window just outside. There's going to be one on the doorway into the connector as well that we saw in the setup phase. Thank you for the top-down view. We'll see some of these being set up, but if KDS keeps fragging Parker, it might not matter. He drops in a Toxin and finds Bach.
Oh, and a missed opportunity there by Angels, but he follows up and shuts down KDS, who's been simply spectacular on this round. Angel's still inside of Labs, but he's looking the wrong way. Pounced upon by Cyber. No longer Cyber Zera, now Cyber Netco. I don't know what is going on with his names, but always amusing as ever. His play needs to be as consistent for them to get over this ENX hump. Now it's Florio with no utility, just an SMG in hand, attempting to get back to the bomb site as the diffuser's been planted by FaZe Clan. Florio marches up and he's got some pings that have since expired. Shotgun out at close range, but FaZe Clan have abandoned ship. What can Florio muster? We'll hear the sound of the C8 from the Buck. Souls is a non-factor at the moment. He's far away, but finds himself in a position to get the final kill. Nicely done by him, and FaZe Clan go up 2-0.
Good attempt from Florio. I know Fresh on the desk was complimenting his clutch ability from stage 1, and he certainly can pull off some big moments when he's required to, but positioning of FaZe Clan just a little bit too good in that 2v1, setting up the perfect crossfire. You go back to some of those early kills too, and it does feel like ENX maybe getting a little too eager on some of those swings. Even Sexy Cake, right? The most experienced player on this team, arguably the most experienced player in the lobby, despite 5 world champions sitting across from him. You do kind of still see some of those swings come out, maybe some of the ego peaks up against a guy like KDS. You can't always get away with that, and so that kind of starts things off on the right foot from FaZe. It's back-to-back rounds now where we do see kind of big individual moments. It's a 3K from Handy, it's another big multi-kill from KDS, but I do still think it's the team play that is enabling the big multi-kills that come out from FaZe Clan, right? Even when one player is the guy racking up the kills, it's coming off the back of the teammates distracting, the teammates being traded out. So all around, looks like really solid attacks from FaZe Clan so far. They had a 55% attacking win rate through stage 1, and so we're hoping to see that continue. They've been one of the best teams in the world for many years now, and I think we're seeing that in the game against ENX.
They haven't really broken much of a sweat, have they now, Jesse? This does not look like a particularly challenging match for FaZe Clan. You go back to stage 1 and look at the map stats played in SAL. Lair is towards the bottom. It's the 4th least played map of the map pool, just from the stage 1 groups. It did break fairly dominantly in favor of the defenders. So the fact that FaZe Clan has been able to start off this map with 2 rounds with relatively standard bans here does give me a bit of concern for ENX's chances. Now, ENX will likely at some point call their timeout and be able to regroup and rack up at least 1 round here. I said this before we got into the match, that they should be able to take at least 1 round on Lair just based on the side swap, hopefully too, but time will very soon be running out for ENX. Despite what we saw in both round 1 and 2, taking early engagements with FaZe Clan and pressuring them right off of the rip, it was the mid round that FaZe dominated, and then in the previous round, it was the end round that FaZe dominated in, and FaZe is just a good team. They're going to be able to punish you when you make the smallest of mistakes. ENX being a newer squad, they are bound to make more mistakes than the defending world champion.
Handy lurking on the bottom floor. I talked about the team play of FaZe, but he will be solo missioning this round. The rest of his team are focused on clearing up above, right? It'll be a 4v4 push top floor while Handy kind of tries to deal with Sexy Cake down below. This bomb site has a ton of verticality, so it is absolutely critical that you do control the top floor. Soul starts things off with a big pick onto Angels, but more fighting ensues. Florio answers back with his first kill of the game, and this Scappa fire not expanding enough to get him in the corner. He barely survives, but I'm not sure he's going to be around much longer. KDS has him dead to rights pinned in that corner.
An enviable spot to be in. Mitrick still searching for his first kill, as is Bach. There's some players on the side of FaZe Clan without a kill, namely Vidaking at this point. Down goes Sexy Cake, Handy, and KDS slaughtering ENX, as the 2 remaining players on the side of ENX remain without a single kill. Mitrix will break the donut, but that's all she wrote. KDS and Souls doubling up for the final 2 kills. FaZe Clan look like they're just warming up. This doesn't even seem like an official match for them at this point.
Yeah, that's a full site rotation too, coming out from ENX, where they try all 3 bomb sites. They're unable to find a single defense on even one of them, and even on the most attacker-sided maps, which I don't think Lair is the most attacker-sided map by any stretch, but even on those, you'd expect to have at least 1 bomb site where you can get the better of your opponents. It is worth noting, ENX have never in team history won a game on Lair. They've only played it twice, but both of those 2 games were against Tier 2 teams. The first time was in Challenger Series, which was the game that they had to play to try to qualify to the South American League even to begin with at the start of the year. Then the second game was referenced by Leo on the desk. It was in Copa Sudamericana. So they ended up losing 2 games to 2 Tier 2 teams since this team was formed at the beginning of the season. They're on pace right now to lose a 3rd to FaZe Clan. They will finally call their attack timeout after banning out that 3rd operator of the Ace. Not sure that's going to make a massive difference in terms of the attacks that FaZe have been going for. It might slow down some of the fragging ability of their hard breachers, but still does feel like FaZe Clan, I mean, you said it, they look like they're warming up right now, Parker. We had hoped that this would not be as dominant as what we saw in stage 1, but so far it's looking like it might be even more successful for FaZe.
Yeah, I mean, when we looked at a 7-1 scoreline, and we touched on it, and the desk touched on it a few times before the game started, we thought there's no possible way that it repeats itself. There's certainly no possible way it gets even worse. But yeah, I mean, if you can't muster a single round as a defender on Lair, something is very, very wrong, either with the way that these teams are playing or one of the teams happens to be playing, and that, you know, appears to be the case right now. I speculated before the previous round ended that we'd see a timeout pretty quickly and that there'd be some level of restructuring for ENX. I'm not really seeing it. These roles look virtually identical. They're bringing operators that have been brought, you know, time and time again. So Maybe it's more about a mental thing. When you add a new player to the team and you swap things up, there will always be an adjustment and a growth period. You've seen it in every single region. It's not unique or exclusive to all these Brazilian teams. It's not unique or exclusive to any other region. And I mean, the schedule for the first day of Stage 2 is identical to the schedule of Stage 1 back, you know, a couple months ago. And if you go and you look at those matches, there were some tough games for some of those younger teams. You know, you had a very experienced team of Furia going up against Los. You had Black Dragons and Nip doing battle. You had Loud and 9Z going up against each other. Loud obviously hot off of that run as Raza Company Academy through SI, not, you know, that far removed from the beginning of Stage 1. And 9Z, at the time, an Argentinian-based team. Now, they do have a majority Brazilian roster for this stage, but still, games 1 and 2 are just experienced teams and experienced players going up against relatively new foes. And I mean, I was a bit surprised by the Loud 9Z scoreline in Stage 1, but I very much could have seen that being as dominant as the FaZe ENX match was, which was the 7-1 victory for FaZe Clan on Bank. So, I mean, what's the expectation here? ENX is going to take some time to find their footing. We thought that there would be some unpredictability. It doesn't seem to be the case just yet, but I will add a little caveat. There's still plenty of time to go for things to tighten up.
Well, Parker, it is nearly the exact same hold from ENX, with the one exception that they can no longer play a zombie, so Angels is bringing out the Frost. But the push from FaZe Clan is looking a bit different, focusing over towards Warehouse, where they can start to get most of their players in. No longer focused on the roam clear. They've largely ignored the roamers. Angels and Sexy Cake were the big ones that were playing top floor. Now Sexy Cake has returned to site, and Angels is sticking around just in case he can get a good vert angle on the plants. It'll be up to Vidaking to push with his team and find a plant inside of Lab, but be careful of those vert angles once again. There needs to be somebody up above to try to harass the players top floor, specifically Angels, so that they don't get that vertical denial. If FaZe can do that, then they're set up for a very strong push, all coming in from this garage side.
There go the bees. So it looks like the goal right now is to isolate Sexy Cake, playing inside of Lab. Angels on the board first. Noah's on me, but that Frost's gun can still hit well. And down goes Ying. Bit of a devastating loss for FaZe. A very utility-heavy and an exceptionally good operator to pair with some fragging potential. FaZe will be less starved or more starved to utility now as they've lost the Grim as well. Sexy Cake is finally toppled as KDS and now Cyber get on the board. So very swiftly, FaZe have equalized these numbers and put ENX in a tougher spot. Still, they've got some good operators remaining. Those Frost Mats persistent as ever. Both Bach and Florio still with access to their gadgets. Cyber has managed to find an exploit. He's inside the bomb site. I don't know if ENX will respond to this or not. Cyber gets away with it, and 6 players still very much alive as FaZe is reduced to 2. Cyber trades out 1. That's Angels down for the count before Cyber's felled, and KDS with his 7 kills will need to go all the way up to 9 if FaZe wants to keep their perfect record in this map alive. It looks like ENX will play this well. They're going to sweep through 2 separate positions. The Ward and a Bach is the real question mark here, as KDS has to do double duty. When he's hitting shots like that, nobody can slow him down except for Florio with a shotgun, and plenty of time for him to hop on to counter disable and give ENX their very first round.
Well, it's back-to-back clutch attempts from Florio on the basement of Lair, and second time he doesn't miss. Great job being able to pull out that 1v1. KDS was looking scary with his 8 kills, but thankfully Florio was just better. I was scared for that defense. I talked about Angels being that top floor player, that real curveball that could have thrown off the push from FaZe Clan. He was the one guy up above the bomb site, and he won his duel. He killed the Ying, which meant he had free reign of the top floor. But then he still chose to retreat back to site. He didn't go for the vertical denial, instead choosing to play with his teammates in the 3v3. That ended up being the right decision, as he did get a frag before going down, traded out to that 2v2, and then again left it up to Florio to hold things down in the end. It got close there, but for ENX, I think you're happy. You call that tack timeout. You maybe play a little bit more together. You don't get over aggressive, peeking things like you did back in round number 2, and you're able to close out a close round. Feeling very nice about that. Hopefully we can see ENX get some speed behind them after a good first one.
Every comeback begins with 1 round, and I know that it sounds cliche, and I know that we say it often enough, but it's really true. And if ENX wants to start putting rounds on the board, which we know that they are capable of doing, they needed a good starting point. I will say it does not exactly bode well for them that it was such a close victory in that previous round. I mean, it really did come down to a single bullet from Cyber missing earlier as that plant went down. And then, of course, the final gunfight where Cyber seemed to have Florio's number, but obviously at that range, a shotgun is going to win out 9 times out of 10, and Florio obviously benefited from that. If you're ENX, you want a dominant and confidence-inspiring round. The fact that you were able to take one round against FaZe Clan, where frankly you looked a little bit hopeless in the previous 3 rounds, should be confidence-inspiring, but now you need a bigger win. You need to be able to pummel FaZe Clan, keep a couple players alive, and knock FaZe Clan off their stride, because a team like them, they've got a lot of mental resiliency. FaZe is not going to be troubled by that previous round.
Back to the top floor, and once again, we've got a hold from Angels in towards operations. Now, previously, while FaZe did breach this, first of all, they had the ace to help them out, but then second of all, they didn't even really push from operations. So now we're going to see them take maybe a bit of a different approach. Can openers will do the job just as well. There's no punish for Vidiking as he does escape with his life. He's able to force Angels off of this position. And now it's really up to ENX. Do you want to play a little aggressive? Do you want to start swinging these players and stopping them from getting set up? It can be really tough if they're just playing kind of bottom lobby and outside the bathroom window, because you really don't have a good angle of swinging them out there. But that'll be the goal. If you let them get set up 5v5 and you get value out of these Grims like they did last time, I worry you might see the same result.
Nades going off. And a nitro cell tossed out by Mitrix as his explosive does nothing. He's managing to stay alive from the nade that was hucked below. ENX playing a very tight defense around these doorways with shotguns and strong weapons at close range. FaZe Clan will have their work cut out for them. We'll need to drone it appropriately. FaZe still has some drones remaining, but not many. There's no gadgetry on the side of ENX that they need to worry about. The Warden will swing on to KDS, who gets baited out by a nitro cell tossed by Sexy Cake. Despite the scoreline, Jesse, ENX have struck first more often than not. But FaZe Clan always seems to do this. They double up. Sometimes they triple up on immediate kills. Angels and Sexy Cake now in the ground after KDS had been felled. KDS obviously no slouch. He's leading the way on FaZe. He's a big target. Souls will join him in the afterlife at the hands of Mitrix, who's now almost positive in KD. FaZe Clan, though, very quick to answer to this. 30 seconds left to push into the bomb site. They net another pair of kills, and it's all up to Mitrix to be the savior. He had 1 kill so far in the round. He'll need to end up with 4. Caught between a rock and a hard place. The moment he moves into this hallway, 2 separate players from FaZe will be watching him, and he attempted to sneak by Cyber and was unsuccessful. All the while, FaZe Clan got the diffuser down. And about as perfect an end to the round from FaZe as you can ask for. One final round remains in this first half. ENX on the favorable side of Lair, only able to muster a single round so far. That is not great. If they can go 2 for 4 here, or 2 to 4 here on this first half, then things aren't all bad, but they will have to walk a little bit uphill when the side swap comes in.
FaZe Clan have a bit of a reputation for being kind of a slow team, and sometimes that means that they get described as a bit of a boring team. But I really think the way they use their utility is so impressive and so interesting to watch from a spectator POV. You saw just how powerful the Grim was coming through from that last round, as he has been for the entire first half, along with the Ying. It's these kind of displacement operators that can throw something annoying right into a pack of defenders and force them to scramble or be in a massive disadvantage because they can't see or they're being constantly pinged. That's what FaZe Clan have been doing really well against ENX, and I thought that last round was a good example of that, where consistently they're just getting map control completely for free because they're using their utility in such a way that forces ENX to run away, or else they're going to get naded from down below. They're going to get swung on, and eventually there's no more map to retreat to. You've just run out of room. FaZe Clan looking so well coordinated, only a single round loss so far. They'll have to go back to this bunks and briefing bomb site on the side of ENX, choosing not to repeat any of these sites more than twice. As you mentioned, Parker, a critical round for ENX.
I don't know how you're able to overcome this deficit on the second half if you're not getting this second round. If it's a 5-1 half for FaZe, I think that unfortunately is curtains on ENX.
Yeah.
You'll have a very, very heavy ball to roll up a very, very steep hill, and I don't know if these 5 players have the strength and the ability to do just that. If the score line was the other way around, if it was 4-1 ENX right now, the language that we would be using, well, let me just speak for myself. The language that I would be using is that this is still much closer than the scoreline suggests. If FaZe Clan wins the second round and then goes to the second half, this is anybody's game. ENX being the younger, the less experienced team with the newer roster playing on the worse side of Lair, I just don't have much hope. So maybe I sound like a hater, but to the ENX fans, I apologize. Sometimes we have to call a spade, and that's what it looks to be for ENX.
Top floor again, the focus, as it always is for Bunks and Briefing. Handy repeating the Nook lurk down on the main floor, so deciding that it wasn't overplayed just yet and he can still make something happen. The mirror windows can be very strong on this site. I love this one in particular being used by Florio. It gives you a great angle into bathroom. We're seeing pro teams use this for a little while now, but it's still really nice to see it coming out. Cyber hoping for a swing and he gets it, but loses the fight anyways. Big from Florio. They get another opening pick for ENX.
Still continue to maneuver towards the bomb site, even down a player and down what might be your main hard breach. They'll lose souls now on the side of FaZe 2. So ENX, as I said, they've been pretty proficient at drawing first blood. It's what happens after that that becomes a bit of a problem. I've had Angels picking things up. Mitrix as well has been good the last couple rounds. FaZe Clan desperate for something, and they're getting a bit sloppy here. Florio picking off KDS, who's been indomitable up to this point. I really like this patience from ENX. They are doubling up on door frames. They're doubling up on swings because they know that even if FaZe can win one, as long as you can trade that one right out, it benefits you. FaZe, if they get traded, will end up with a 3v0 favoring ENX. Handy's last man standing, and by God, it looks like it'll be a flawless round. No, Handy says no thanks. Not just one, but two. Him sitting on 7 kills, looking for more, but he's running out of time. Bach will get his first kill of the stage, and it comes pretty impactful. 4-2 for FaZe Clan through the first half. ENX's job now gets a lot harder, but they were able to salvage that final round to give themselves the best positioning for the side swap.
Yeah, and I think in two different ways, important trends have just been broken. First of all, of course, that's the first time we've seen ENX confidently win a round. They got a 1v1 win a couple rounds ago, but that's the first time that ENX have looked fully in control. Did it come off of FaZe Clan, maybe over-peaking mirror windows? Perhaps, but it's still a round that will imbue some confidence into ENX. And as you said, Parker, it's Bach Zera getting on the board finally. And Bach has been a player that has rarely struggled to get on the board in terms of kills. In stage 1, he had 90 frags. To put into perspective, nobody else on ENX had even 70. So he was by far the top frag on this young team. He is the youngest player in the league. And so if Bach is struggling, I think it's no surprise that ENX would be struggling as well. He's playing on some of these more support roles, of course, and that sometimes doesn't enable a player to get as many frags, but Bach has been the exception to that. He's consistently been a good player for ENX who can find the scoreboard more and more. Maybe as the role swaps come through, as he moves over to the attack, we can start to see that stage 1 Bach Zera that we've come to know and love so much. Certainly going 0 kills for the first 5 was not what he had hoped for the stage 2 debut, but it's okay. If this turns things around, if this gets both him and his teammates a bit more confidence, then that could make all the difference in a game against FaZe Clan.
When you're playing up against a team as smothering and as dominant as FaZe, who are ever shifting sands under your feet, you need everything that you can to beat them. Maybe it's a pocket pick, maybe it's a cheese strat, maybe it's operators that they are not expecting, maybe it's early aggression to knock them off of their stride. But FaZe Clan are really just steady as they go as a team. And yeah, to the point about me saying they're shifting sands under your feet, it's that this team has so much flexibility. KDS and Handy top fragging on FaZe Clan is a little bizarre for the players that they have, you know, but there's an ever revolving door of superstars on FaZe day by day. Vidiking will be the top player and the MVP of a particular day in the group stages of a LAN event. And then the very next day it'll be Cyber. And then at the end of the event, you'll go, well, wait, how does KDS have the second most kills on the team? We were barely saying his name. When you're going up against a team like FaZe Clan that has that level of depth, I as somebody who's never played at a pro level, and maybe both Alphama and Fresh can lean into this, I don't really know how you go about shutting them down when you've got different players entering in different positions and using different utility to do that. All of this right now, I said, is a moot point because FaZe is obviously going to be riding on defense, on Lair, where they can roam. They can have somebody play in the basement and be unpredictable. They can have players double up on doorways where they know you're going to entry from and you're not expecting it.
We're seeing a bit of the role swap coming through that I was talking about right before the game started. I believe it was Fresh that called Sexy Cake a necessary evil, that he had to play so many shields in stage 1, and he did. 37% of his attacking rounds were on shields, but now that moves over to the new player on the team, Mitrix grabbing the Blackbeard. Really excited to see what he does with this. He's going Green Hall, which is not a push we saw out of FaZe Clan, but it is quite common in Tier 1 to see players push in this direction. Getting control of server is going to be really important. Making sure that you have storage control is very critical on a push like this. The smoke makes it awkward. Vidaking is very proficient on this operator, just playing in these close corridors. The Blackbeard is supposed to be the one to make that space. Once the toxic babes get cleared out, if you can push the mirror windows too, then Mitrix can start to go.
It's a popped mirror window with a Nitro Cell waiting on the other side of it. After his first kill in the previous round, Bach is in the grave early for ENX. We are just past the 1 minute remaining mark. ENX have their work cut out for them. They've managed to establish a beachhead here in storage, but now the next step is to make it through that threshold into the bomb site. A lot harder to do than you'd think. All of the walls that lay in front of Mitrix have been opened up by FaZe Clan. There's a lot of trepidation there from the attackers because you have no idea if a defender is playing behind it, especially when you're starved for information the way that ENX is. FaZe Clan can very quickly move up to bring the fight to ENX, who at the present moment are stalling out a bit. But maybe there's something to be said about patience, as Angels gets a pick, a very important one, answered back right away from Souls. But there goes Sexy Cake, there goes Florio, and Mitrix will join them as 1, 2, 3, they fall in the span of a few seconds. They got bogged down through that mid-round, didn't know where to go, did not know how to handle the layers that were set up by FaZe Clan. And it's FaZe taking the very first round of half 2.
You know, for his first attack of this season, Mitrix on the Blackbeard, I actually liked what he was able to do there. His goal as the Blackbeard was to push through our 6 room and get to a plant spot just on the gallery door, and he did just that. Unfortunately, all of his teammates ended up getting swung and died, and he was the last one alive, so that was a little bit tough for him, but I did kind of like that shield play coming out from Mitrix, and maybe a good sign of things to come for ENX as they continue their journey through the South America League, but does feel like that first attack was going to be pretty important if you were going to continue this comeback up against FaZe Clan. They're now just 2 rounds away from being able to shut this down, and they'll get another couple chances to play that top floor bomb site, so FaZe certainly feeling comfortable on the defensive layer.
We got an exciting matchup coming up next. For those that didn't hear earlier, we are looking at the exact same schedule as was played in stage 1, which is a fun little quirk. 9Z, the former majority Argentinian team, back in stage 1, they were the only one of the 10 teams in the South America League to not have a full Brazilian roster. They now do. So everybody becomes Brazil here in South America on a long enough timeline. Still 2 Argentinian players on 9Z, but their majority Brazilian lineup will do battle against Loud up next. In stage 1, 9Z making their debut at a tier 1 level, most of those players with very limited tier 1 experience, and they pushed Loud to the brink. Loud did ultimately prevail 8-6, but it was a very surprising match. Loud narrowly missed out on the playoffs. What is that from Cyber, by the way? Hold on a second here. Let me just wait a moment because I don't really understand what Cyber was hoping to accomplish there. Loud is that old Raza Company Academy roster, for people who remember their miracle run that they did through the SI that we had in Boston. They tied with Black Dragons at 13 points, but ultimately ended up on the outside of the playoffs. Will they fare better than an 8-6 scoreline against the new look of 9Z's roster? We'll find out in a couple minutes. But first, do FaZe Clan put this one away against ENX? They have a rough start losing Cyber.
Potential for another KDS. Playing kind of aggressive at the top of these blue stairs. Once he falls off, he does have this new fire pipe that he can shoot. Cover his escape a little bit, but he doesn't seem like he needs to. He sees the Blackbeard and decides it's better just to get back to site as fast as possible. That's going to be every player on FaZe Clan retreating from the top floor. Doesn't mean they're safe, though. Angels on a vert angle will take down Vidiking and give ENX a 2-man advantage. Plenty of soft breach from Boxzera, plenty of hard breach from Angels to start opening these hatches, and plenty of time. I don't see how this push could be any better for ENX. They have every advantage they could want. Really interesting to see what this Roar is able to do as well. Usually you'll see that go towards kind of electrical and get in that direction, but with Florio having the defuse kit and everybody playing inside of Armory, I'm wondering if you might try to use it to help drop the hatch when this execute becomes reality.
Good timing for Souls throwing out that first gas canister to block blue stairs, where you saw several players from ENX were assembled. Another one will go, meaning with 35 seconds left and one gas canister in pocket, there will be a minor opportunity. Souls beheading Sexy Cake in a position Sexy Cake, frankly, should have been aware of, at least from the calls of his teammates. Final Toxic Babe will go down with 20 seconds left on the clock, so a very small window of opportunity for ENX to capitalize off of that lack of gas. Handy now sees the Blackbeard drop. He picks up 2, Souls gets the other. And time again, ENX just fall apart in the latter portion of the round. Bach with an impactless exit kill, almost a second, but Handy swiftly shuts down any chance and shoots FaZe Clan to match point.
And that's tragic. You know, they did try to use the Aurora gates to close off that doorway into stock, kind of like I thought. And I think in theory, that's supposed to allow you to drop inside of office. But I think with the players still inside a filter, with the position being held by Souls, they decided we can drop Toxin instead. The problem is there is still a guy in stock, and that was Handy. And not only was he now safe from that hatch, but he had a perfect view of everybody dropping through, including the Blackbeard, which should have been the toughest operator to kill. Things just not really being put together from ENX. A huge round from Souls stepping up there. Was able to first use those smokes to stall the push filter and really alleviate pressure from himself. And then once he opened up that gap, he's the one that exploited it, stepped up, took down Sexy Cake, who was supposed to be that second dimension to the push, that pinch coming in through electrical, but just didn't have the opportunities. He went down a little too early. Perfectly played by FaZe Clan. They dig themselves out of a bad situation and put themselves right on match point.
It's a little surprised how quickly that Blackbeard folded from that angle. I mean, with all shield operators, there have been numerous times where we've watched them and thought to ourselves, how did you die to that? I mean, just a couple days ago, we were casting NA League and Canadian on Blitz got picked away at when it looked like his shield was getting shot, but it turns out it was his shoulder. Always a mystery, but I mean, there's a reason why people bemoan shields both as attackers and defenders. There are some inconsistencies there. I'm old enough to remember when Blitz's earmuffs, his hearing protection, had a hitbox, so you could shoot his earmuffs and it would kill him. They obviously have since changed that and made the skeletons a little bit smaller. But shields giveth, shields taketh away. Blackbeard will be brought yet again from ENX. Mitrix hoping for a bit more success on that operator, as this is a very critical round for both teams. FaZe Clan prevails. It'll be a 7-2 as the scoreline for our very first match. ENX have already done better than they did in stage 1 by a single round. So there's been some progress here, but they've got more work to be done to prove that they have really grown as a team.
Bunks wall, sometimes a problem, but with a Bandit and Kaid ban, it's not usually going to be too big of a problem. So Box able to get that open without issues. Souls inside of Armory. This Logic Bomb will give away his position, and the goal will be to clear him out. Cyber with him as well to try to help. It's a Blackbeard that he sees first and decides just to make the retreat. Will there be a frag on either direction? I like that Mitrix is keeping his shield up. He's not exposing himself, but that does mean that Souls has to get away. Now paired back up with Cyber, they block off the angle and continue to hunt for this pick, but Mitrix has given him nothing.
We're now able to back off of this position. I did say that FaZe Clan, these shifting sands of a team, having a dual man roam downstairs right in the face of ENX before scampering off, not wasting, but using a little bit of utility in the process. Oh my goodness. Once again, Mitrix on the Blackbeard gets felled from a position I don't think he was expecting. A rough start to ENX. They have been pretty good at winning those first duels. As time has gone on, FaZe Clan have been putting them through the paces, and now FaZe are in the driver's seat with 50 seconds left.
It's a great kill from Vidiking. There's going to be pressure top floor as they know how critical it is. They don't have a lot of time because they still got to clear up above, but Handy strikes next. It's a 3v5 Parker. They've got a huge hole to dig themselves out of.
An ideal spot to be in. There goes Bach, and ENX just falling by the wayside. There has been some growth. I don't think you can argue that. It's just maybe not the level of growth they need to take on a world championship team. Vidiking, the only player on the side of FaZe Clan who's lost any HP. He's barely lost any. KDS loses a bunch, but Vidiking and KDS both collaborate for that final pick, and it's a flawless round to give the win to FaZe Clan.